If you're fighting on all these different fronts and something like COVID happens, you really can be in some issues.
Welcome everyone to the Sports to Business podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Scott Arsenault, the CEO of Rents Pets, former college football player and a leader with tons of marketing and sales experience. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Pandora. Very excited.
We're excited as well. So Scott, right off the bat, what is keeping you the most busy these days?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've been focusing on a couple things, the growth of our company, but I've also been focusing on some personal fitness goals. So I've been busy with that as well.
So you, for the podcast, you mentioned you play tight end and guard back in your college days. So how has the fitness journey been for you? Did you lose a bunch of weight afterwards? So what was that like?
Yeah, I wish I lost a bunch of weight afterwards. And, we're going to get into it on the conversation today. And I had an executive coach start working with me about 3-4 years ago, really transformational. And one of the things she said that really stuck with me is you're an executive athlete. And I was really foregoing that piece of my, personal health. And we talked about in spiritual, emotional kind of leadership things, but also being a healthy leader and modeling that. So she challenged me. I'm part of the executive coach, and you had to show up every 2 weeks with some physical fitness results, as well as kind of any other work we were working on.
Well, that's amazing. I'm sure we're going to dive into all that, especially I think the benefit of having somebody hold you accountable in your life, especially from an athletics perspective, but also in your career in this disruptive world. To kick it off, Scott, so walk us through your early life, football, love of sports, and how did you get to becoming this amazing executive at this amazing brand today?
Yeah, you know what? I'll go back to it. Even pre-football days, I was a hockey player. I love hockey. I like football. I love being on a football team. So you talked about, I think one of the coaches when you were in Brampton said you had been improving so much and look how far you've come. And I started to think about, got me reminiscing about people and moments in my life. I ended up playing junior B in Brantford with Rob Blake, who was an NHL star and on a really good team, just out of kind of luck. And out of there, I got drafted to play hockey for the Belleville Bulls. So I ended up now going to play for the Belleville Bulls. Keith Gretzky was there. I got to meet him. I lived with him for a little bit. And I thought my life was all about being a hockey player at that point. I had finished grade 12 high school. The age brackets were a little bit different back then, and I started school early. So I was fortunate enough to go into my first season there, having graduated from grade 12. But I played about 10 games, mostly exhibition with the team, and ended up with their farm team. So this isn't great. I'm now a captain of their junior B team. I'm still thinking maybe I can play hockey at a higher level. Not doing well in school while I was there. And ended up getting a 10-game suspension. I remember David Branch, I had to go in Cambridge in front of him, and I had a 10-game suspension. And, it was going to really end my junior B season. So I made the decision because, you cut off school in January that, the season was going to be over. We weren't making the playoffs. I'm going to come back to high school. And I know this is a long story, but it's important because my high school football coach at St. Mary's in Hamilton, right on Mac campus, said to me, he said, if you come back, I'll get you a scholarship. And I was like, I had played a year of football. I'd maybe played 2 years of football at most. I played 1 year junior, 1 year senior, and then went off to play hockey. And I came back and, as life changes, I did my OACs, grade 13, which is not around. I did a victory lap in the fall, played football, got accepted to Western, got accepted to Laurier and Simon Fraser. So, to get an athletic scholarship in Canada was something that wasn't really around at the time. We were going to pay American schools. That was interesting. They flew me out to PC. I fell in love with it and went from being a hockey player to being a football player very quickly.
That's amazing. I think it's so great when, folks that have been through a lot of changes in their life, such as yourself, Scott, where you try something, but it doesn't work out. And if you keep putting in the work and you keep taking the actions, you do end up somewhere, sometimes even better than you were where you had it. So I think it's also, love your comments on that as well. A lot of people today are so fixated on let's say a goal or a result. But I think what we're missing in today, even I felt this before, is the journey and enjoying the journey as well. And I think that's what I'm sure you've enjoyed your journey from all these years to where you are now.
So I finished and I went to a CFL evaluation camp, went to teachers college. In this journey, I thought I was going to become a teacher. I got out of school and it was the Ray days, well before your time, but there was a lockdown. There was no hiring. A lot of my friends went to work up north, some on reservations, some to different, were just supply teachers. And there was just a really limited availability of jobs. So now I'm out with a teaching degree and there's no teaching jobs for like 4 or 5 years it went on. So I ended up moving through that and starting into a business life. And what I have 18 nieces and nephews, and one of them has a great saying: it's either a stepping stone or a tombstone, right? Yeah. And so as I fast forwarded to becoming the CEO of Wren's, there was a lot of steps along the way, but everyone prepared me for this job. And there was failures and there was missteps, but if I look back, all of them prepared me, and all those learnings kind of made up, whether it was in marketing when I learned in this little job I was in, or when I had my own marketing company, or was working for Standard Bread Canada as selling magazine ads. They all kind of prepared me. And when I got here, I didn't know it at the time, I had found my kind of final spot that I felt like now I can channel all this in the right way.
And also, I think a lot of people that I've seen that are successful, they never say no to the hard things. Whether it's selling magazines, doing a project that nobody else wants to touch because it's just so messy. But I think that's the stuff that really gets you ready for the amazing roles down the line. There's no shortcut to it.
Yeah, I just read David Goggins' book, and I don't know if you've read it, but the 40%. I'll give you a story. Me and my wife, I'm going to say we live in a really nice house now, and it looks like, we've done very well, but I'm 53 years old and there's been some struggle. And I can remember one time we used to work events, and we had children. So it's not that long ago, selling daiquiris at events and summer theme. And the person owed us a couple $1,000s and he couldn't pay us. And so we ended up driving down to St. Catharines. We put a freezer on the back of my dad's pickup truck and we got paid in cheesecakes. And I sold those cheesecakes. So, that's back when $2,000 to me and my wife was more than our mortgage payment, car payments, and we couldn't afford. And that was, we were doing on the side type of thing. So, it does make you and prepares you for these final kind of stages of your life. And, if you can get through that, you can kind of get through something else.
That's a great story. Very, very inspirational. Cheesecakes. Yeah.
Well, I was prepared to do what I had to do at the time, right? And those things are great learnings, and you can kind of callous yourself and learn. When I was at Simon Fraser, I went out there my first year as a rookie. I made the team and I was going to start. We played UBC, which was a Canadian college, and we beat them. That was a big rival game for it. But then we went and played our first game in Western Washington University. And now I'm in a different country. I'm 3,000 miles from home. Going back to, I thought I was going to be a hockey player. Now I think I'm going to be a football player. And I blow out my knee. And I just didn't blow out my knee. I was at the university 5 years, and my coach never came on the field once. He was on the field. I was tangled up. It was the Joe Theismann. My knee was twisted. It was dislocated. I tore my anterior cruciate, my posterior, my patella, my medial collateral. They could pull my leg literally away. Wow. So I go into the locker room, and here I am. My parents don't know I'm injured. My family doesn't know where I am right now. And the doctor comes up to me and he says, you're not going to play football again, and you're definitely going to have challenges walking, So they put me in a van, took me back to Canada immediately. Couldn't even operate for a couple of weeks. There was so much swelling and inflammation. And I sat in a hospital bed, for a couple of weeks alone, and thinking, now I thought I was a football player. Everybody patch on the back. You're going away to school. This is my life. Now my identity was kind of stripped away from me. And I have no future type of thing again.
So what do you do in that moment, Scott? I think it's a great lesson for people. How did you get back to making progress in life?
I think it's, you cry a little bit, you kind of try and figure things out. I can remember being on crutches on Thanksgiving in British Columbia alone and just wondering, but it was small steps. I spent a lot of time in the pool that year. We thankfully had about 5 or 6 guys that blew their knees out. Football teams are big, right? Yeah. And that's not a good thing, but I had a group of people that were training in a pool atmosphere for a year and doing all this, therapy. And I had some support within the team, and I stuck with it. And I came back the next year. I actually started in Western Washington and met that doctor again, and he was kind of shocked. Now, I was dragging my leg around. It wasn't good, but it was, I guess, small changes every day, just trying to prepare to go back to it and not giving up.
That's amazing. Going from somebody who told you that you can't walk ever again properly, now you're back within a year playing a football game. That's remarkable, right?
Yeah, it was really tough, and to be that far away. And I think that's where, I was trying to align on some of the, looking at this, going to do this interview. And I was thinking, what was the change? I think you have to be in a growth mindset in your life. And I only have learned about a growth mindset from an executive coach really in the last 3 or 4 years, but I probably was in a growth mindset. I just didn't know it. And being able to take these kind of, changes that are happening to you, whether you like them or not, you're not a hockey player, you're not a football player, and continue to move forward is probably the hardest thing. And you're going to deal with that in business every day.
So how can leaders today build a growth mindset, especially when, things are so different and uncertain as we are in this post-pandemic world?
Well, you mentioned Simon Sinek. You got to figure out your why, right? So we're really passionate here about pets and their best life. So everything is kind of centered around that. And with the growth mindset, the one thing I got to tell people is everything is out there for you to read and can be learned as a leader. It is not something that is natural or innate. These are things that, you read old books that were published in the 80s and you're like, wow, this was the greatest thing. I can't believe it. I'm reading a book, Why People Sleep, right now. I don't know if you've read it. It puts me to sleep. It's a hard book, but I can't believe what I didn't know about why you sleep and when those benefits to that. So I'm like, geez, I wish somebody would have told me this a long time ago, right? And so there's a lot of things to growth mindset, but I think if you figure out your why, you're all excited about that. Ours is we're passionate about pets and the best life, and then you figure out kind of that you want your team to embrace that and always be growing and changing, I think is really important.
And what do you do personally, Scott, that's helped you as an individual have a growth mindset in your personal life as well?
You know what? I got to be open to a lot of things. And one thing about going to university, I came from Carlisle, so probably a really white Anglo-Saxon Roman Catholic population, and went to university. And, we're dealing with that now within business and personal life is diversity, inclusion, and it's great. So I think you just want to always be embracing this. I have a big family. There's a lot of different diversity and things that are happening within that family. And I think you can take those and learn from them without having a closed kind of mindset. So I keep challenging myself. My wife says I'm a fraction of who I used to be, in a good way, because, I was a 25-year-old athlete, probably pretty proud of myself back then, but I had to evolve as a leader. And really, I've been here 10 years at Rennes, and I've changed a lot.
So, as an athlete, you're 25 years old, you graduate, go to the CFL Combine. Now, you didn't make the CFL, then you had to go into the business world. How did your experience, maybe it's the injuries, but the practices, the balancing 40 hours of school with football, which is also 40 hours, 2 full-time jobs. How did all those things prepare you in your business career? And then what are some things that you even go back to today and say, you know what, these are things that I learned back then that I still use to this day?
Well, the one thing you said, it was like having a full-time job playing football. So prioritization was key, right? You had to make sure time management. But I have a big belief in the preparation, like the key to success is preparation. So, I went to teachers college and I learned how to give a lesson plan. I'll use that when I'm in a meeting. I'll be, what's my objective? What's my lessons? What's my procedures? What's my follow-up? So I prepare, and then some people will go, that was a really good speech you gave, or it was meaningful. And I heard Winston Churchill, one of his quotes, he said, my most unprepared speech, I prepared the most for. So he would look like he was unprepared, but he knew they were going to ask him to speak, and he anticipated that. So I think preparation is the key to success. And a lot of things we did, as athletes in the off season, we worked our jobs in the summer to make money for school. We had to train at night. We had to package our food up and make sure we were prepared and all these things. So I think when you get into a work life now, a 40-hour work week isn't that intimidating. And, I know you've been through some of those challenges with your projects, and you're working weekends and you're working nights. And I know we all like to work a 40-hour work week, and I'm working towards that now in my career. But the reality is you don't get ahead in anything working 40 hours a week. So, you just really do have to sometimes do these things, but that grind does prepare you for these next steps, right?
Yeah, I think as you said before, you have to be willing to say yes.
Yeah.
That's when I found the most growth is somebody would say, well, this is a project. It's probably going to take you a lot more than 40 hours a week. but I know that if I can do this, it's going to set me up for the future. And that's what I've seen play out for most people as well.
Yeah. Other things too is small changes, and consistency. So when you're working out, you're not going to see the end result, but after 4 years, you're a different human than you were in the first training session at McMaster. And that's the same within the boardroom. These small changes can make very big differences over time if you consistently apply them. And what I think, with technology, flavor of the day can kind of get in the way sometimes, and something can be shiny and you gravitate towards that. And, I read a great book, Jim Collins' Good to Great, and technology can be your accelerator, right? It shouldn't be the thing that makes you great, but it can accelerate you. So, these small changes that you do consistently over time, fixated on your why, is really, and that's the same thing with working out and training, right? And those reps that you did and had to get them perfect every time.
Yeah, it's what Jim Collins calls the flywheel, I think.
Yeah.
In that book, yeah.
I think of The Price is Right and how it turns faster and you just get to, and Renz is in the flywheel stage. So if nobody's read that book and you're in business, you want to understand it, they say that overnight successes take 45 years. Renz has been 47 years. We were one store for over 20 years, type of thing. So now we're 38 stores, we're headed to 44. We're on kind of a super growth path, but it's taken a long time to get it turning really fast.
So walk me through what that journey was like, Scott, going from very few stores to, I think now you guys are over 30 or 40.
Yeah, we're going to be 44 this year.
Wow, incredible.
And when I started, we were 3. And we owned all of our properties. We didn't have any leased properties. So that, again, is an example of having a growth mindset. We traditionally liked to own the real estate. That was part of the plan, but it slowed down our growth. So it was a great model, but didn't allow us to expand. So we went into leased opportunities and we could grow quicker. They're still all corporate stores, so we have autonomy over the stores. We give our managers a lot of opportunity to run their stores as if they're their own. But it was a struggle, and I will say this today, and if any of my team's listening, it times feels like I'm working way less hard than I used to. And you talk about teams and foundations and, spending 3 months on it. It took me a lot longer than 3 months to build teams and foundations. And we've just added a really important piece in HR to kind of our executive kind of roundtable. And I feel like we have that team and that complement of people, but it takes years. And for the first 5 years, me and my VP of retail, we worked every 10 sale. We were at sales on the weekends, and struggling. We were merging stores past 12, 15 stores, but then you start to get more people and it gets easier.
You got the momentum on your side.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, I think you bring up a great point. You're always in your off season, especially when you're building out. Yeah. Right? You might be playing a game, but in business, you have to keep preparing every single day. You might see results. You got to get back to the drawing board every other day.
Yeah, so that's something, you set those targets and kind of goals and where you want to be. And so you're really focused on that 80-20 rule and making sure, but my job and part of the leadership team's job is to think a little farther out, right? What's 3 years look like? What's 5 years look like? You got supply chain, distribution, where are we going to be and what are we going to need for offices and expansion, platforms. You don't grow platforms overnight when you grow at this, when I started, we were 100 employees, right? A couple people in finance. We have a team of 10 there now, and we're over 600 employees. So every platform that we had, whether it was for payroll or the website or, customer service, we outgrew them several times and you have to keep re-implementing.
Yep. So, as an athlete, you know that nothing is certain. You have to make adjustments at halftime, right? Which is the nature of the game. How have you implemented that in your playbook as a CEO, especially now that you're constantly battling change, restrictions, especially with COVID and capacity limits, digital transformation? So how do you make sure that you're adjusting your playbook and also making sure your team is happy with all this change that's coming their way?
Well, I think you want to build a strong business. And so we had a really good foundation going into COVID, and kind of like my knee injury, nobody really could predict that, but that was business trauma when that first started, right? So I went from having quarterly board meetings with my private equity to having bi-weekly board meetings or weekly meetings going over cash flow, leases, vendors, suppliers. Like there was a lot of uncertainty of how this was all going to play out. What's the government allowing us? What are the restrictions? They're changing very rapidly. But I think, what allows you to adapt the best is kind of having that clarity of our why and really being strict and we weren't fragile. So if you're, sometimes I'll use war analogies. If you're fighting on all these different fronts and something like COVID happens, you really can be in some issues. And maybe a restaurateur was doing something really good with the steak industry and they decided to go into desserts and coffee and spread themselves a little bit thin, and then something comes like that. So I think you have to be, predictive in your mindset that things are going to come up in business, and we want to make sure foundationally we're really strong at the core, and then we can make decisions from a position of power and not weakness. We had good cash flow. We had good relationships. We weren't fragile. So that really helped us navigate through. So I would look back, as much as you want to take a lot of risk and grow your business fast, you really do sometimes have to just pump the brakes and make sure you're doing it in chunks that if there is a situation like COVID, you're able to adapt quickly.
And this is a great point, because, whether you're a CEO or you're an individual growing into managerial, director level roles, there's so many things out there. I call the shiny toy syndrome. There's so many things out there that are shining right at you. You're like, you know what? I even if you're an athlete, I have the story where it's like, hey, this 30 days to lose 30 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And you keep switching back and forth. Or this amazing opportunity that if we just sign this partnership, we're going to find 30, 40 new deals. Or if you're a CEO, maybe this is the market you want to enter because this market is very lucrative right now. There's these things everywhere, especially in today's environment. Everything is so easy to enter from market perspective. Technology makes it easier to enter. Now, you said that you want to sometimes build the foundations and pump the brakes. How do you know what opportunities to say yes to, and which ones did you say, no, this is not for us?
I think experience. We've done a lot of things we've done wholesale, we've sold Costco online, we've done well.ca, we've partnered with shop.ca, some of these people, and those opportunities come to us now, and we're like, the time suck on some of these, you'll never, ever estimate it right. And people are like, oh, we could take this on. It's a project that I think will be fun. And it's like, is it really, and they talk about the hedgehog and good to great. So sorry to keep going back to it, but it really says, what can you be great at? What are you passionate about? And what really generates revenue? So, a lot of times, I've seen some of our suppliers and brands come out with different line extensions, and I'm like, that's really a small niche, and you're putting all your team's energy, kind of 80% of their energy is now going into 10%. And that's not going to help you or us. And at the end of the year, they're disappointed with the results. And it's like, well, did you start from a place that you knew you could be great at, you were passionate about, and it drove revenue in the bottom line? And I think that's where, and I've had a lot of those kind of, shiny fire trucks, like you're saying, and different things that, get exciting and people bring them to you. And you're just like, guys, like, our plan was this, let's stick to it. Now, there's things you can accelerate. Like we had BOPUS long before our competitors. We've been selling online for 15 years across Canada. We shifted to order by 2, ship same day. These are things that we accelerated, but they were all in line with your pet's best life. We want to get your product quicker. We believe that this is, and it's aligned. It wasn't something away from our core business. It was enhancing our core business. So if it's making the core business better and stronger, I think you can, move forward with it. But if it's really a differentiator and it's something that we're not passionate about or can be great at, then let's just, I'll give you an example in our business. We're really big in dog and cat. If you come into our stores, and we'll get a lot of complaints or people asking us when we go into new areas, why don't you have more small animal, and why don't you have fish and live animals? And it's like, because that's a whole other business and we don't play in that business and we're not great at that. So we're going to stick with dog and cat. Our people are knowledgeable. They're excited about it. And we find that's what, families are most passionate about. And we have great relationships there. So there's competitors that play in those arenas and they do very well at it. And we just kind of, sometimes people are like, should we expand aquatic? Should we do? And we just kind of like, is it back to what we're passionate about, what we can be great about? So I think if you go back to those kind of core fundamentals, the decision-making gets really easy. Mm-hmm.
And going back to your objective, your goal, your why, and then a simple ROI analysis on, is this the best place you should be spending your team's time versus somewhere else, right? It's very simple, but hard to do.
Yeah. And you know what, we've rolled out our why and our core values, and I still think we have a ton of room to go there. And we could start on another project. And it's like, we still have this one. It's maybe a little bit older. We got to dust it off, but we haven't even perfected this. So why would we move on to something else when we have this one that I think is still valuable and we still need to be better at it?
How do you, once you do have a direction and you know your why, these are the priorities, for the year. How do you make sure your team is all aligned to the same playbook? What has to happen?
Yeah. So I got a saying that days make weeks, make months, make quarters, make years, right? In the same regard, if we have a bad day, a snowstorm, it used to be the end of the world. You didn't want to be in my house, right? I'm like, we're past that now that, so we set those priorities for the year, how many stores we're going to open, the development that we're going to do, whether it's digitally and tech,
Yep.
and we don't veer from that. So we make sure, I loved Rudy Giuliani's use of Monday morning meetings. So I adopted kind of a huddle thing where he brought everybody in New York City in, whether it was police and
Yep.
fire and EMS. So my executive team comes in for a meeting on every Monday morning. We assess the week previous. We don't leave it. We got the numbers. We check it out. What's the customer saying? Then we meet with the whole company after that. So we check in really quickly on what's a priority and, create clarity on things like in February, we canceled a retail event because of supply chain. We made a decision. We all agreed on it. We moved forward really quickly. We didn't, in the past, we might have waffled on that a little bit, took a little bit longer. Now we have a little bit more clarity. This is right. This is good. We do it. We're aligned. We go tell the team we're going to do that. Before it might have trickled out over weeks and people would have been nice to know. But I think we do a good job with our cadence on our team meetings to make sure everybody's informed every week.
So you got great processes and great systems in place to make sure that you're always executing on the things that matter on a weekly and a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you make sure that there are always some people that might not believe in the direction that is put forward by the leadership team? How do you make sure everybody buys into your plays or your playbook or your vision and actually does execute on it, even if they don't believe it's the best action?
Yeah, you know what? That's that whole kind of radical candor. If people know you care, and if you've shown that, you can give people critical feedback, but they know you care about them, and it's the same way coming this way. Some simple things is the CEO calls you on Teams, and you pick up because you're like, the CEO, Scott's calling me, and I've been told like, hey, could you just message us ahead of time and say when you have time? But they feel like that. So you create that trust, you create that level of confidence that you're like, you know what, I learned from that. I appreciate you telling me that because I didn't see it. I just wanted to talk to you really, Tanvir, quickly. And you're like, dropped everything else. So understanding that dynamic, and then it comes back the other way. They're able to tell you things that maybe they don't agree with. But if they really do know you care, they'll support you moving forward as a group, and you kind of have to make sure that you all align after you've had that either disagreement, dissension, but it comes down to radical candor, like telling somebody, some people say, oh, I tell people straight. And it's like, well, you're a jerk. But if you tell them in a manner that's caring, you can have radical candor with somebody and they're going to appreciate that you're giving them that feedback. And I've had to learn to take that. It's tough. Nobody wants to hear it, right? Sometimes. So as much as, you're going to give it, you got to be able to receive it. Mm-hmm. And then once you get past that, it's kind of cool when it's happening. Yeah.
It's like a coach yelling at you, but he's yelling at you because he wants you to do better so the team can win as a whole, right?
We don't yell. We try not to yell, but I know what you're saying.
On the football field. I think, you're right. It starts with empathy, right? And saying that, look, I actually care about you. I want you to do better. And if you're doing great, I'm going to do great because we're on the same team. And if we're doing great, the company's going to do great. I think that's the part some people miss, where they're like, I want to be transparent, but they're just transparent for the sake of being transparent versus saying there's a reason behind this because I want us to win as a team. That's the differentiation that I've seen that really helps. Yeah. So I want our stores to hit their targets, get their budgets closed out, and make sure they, get full bonus, right? I really do want to see them, have families and relationships and cars and kids and houses and stuff. And I've seen this. I've seen $11 an hour people move up to senior market managers and really have careers within Ren's. And I think that's important. So you got to build up that care and trust throughout it and make sure you have those checkpoints. But we might say something to them like, hey, your opportunity conversion, you're not signing up customers on our rewards program and you're below average. And if you get these up, you'll get your sales. If you get your sales, you get your bonus, your team will do well, you'll be a great leader, and all these things will happen from that. So that's a real world example where we have conversations that
we want you to sign up more people on rewards because we know Ren's is a great place. We believe that. And then when they come back, they're going to have an awesome experience and you're going to do really well. So we're having this conversation today because we want you to hit your personal goals and targets.
Well, I'm happy to see there's a Ren's that opened up in Trinity Commons, where I grew up in Brampton. There used to be a competitor that I will not name on this podcast.
Well, I'll tell you, that store is off the charts. It's doing amazing. You know, that plaza was tough to get into. COVID opened up a few vacancies. Obviously, we took over a great spot. It's a big store. It's beautiful. And it's been doing fantastic. Yeah, that's really excited about Brampton. Milton opened in the same year. Heartland, Oakville. Like, we opened up a lot in that core. We had been in Oakville for 46 years and hadn't opened up around Oakville. And so a lot of people, you know, had to drive and make that drive to Oakville. And, you know, now you have the people north of Brampton, Orangeville, Caledon, these people that can get in there as well and kind of utilize our Ren's there.
We love the family vibe in the stores, which is the differentiator for us.
Yeah, for sure. We have something called the carry-out culture. We literally track how many carry-outs we do a day previous to COVID, and they're measured on that. So that was something different. But it's not just carrying the bag of food out to the car. You can have a conversation. You can see if it's their first time in. Did somebody recommend them? You know, and it really builds that kind of trust. And we have a saying that I learned from my past life: act as if you're the owner. So that's, you know, in a scenario where that career choice was good, but didn't work out, kind of failed, led me to something else. I took that piece of learning there, whether it was marketing, but specifically this act as if, and we really challenged the managers to act as if they own the store. So put your name in front of it. And, you know, it's Sharon's Ren's Pets, right? Type of thing. So
that's amazing. Very, very great. One more question for you, Scott. I saw that you've tattooed your car. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so you know, I had a great mentor in marketing, and it was really guerrilla marketing, kind of, you know, this guerrilla warfare. And I go back to that, and sometimes just kind of mapping out your strategy. But you know, I'm really proud of this brand, and I believe we're selling to the end consumer. And there's just so many people that don't know about us. So I take every opportunity I can to, you know, logo a car, logo a shirt. And be proud of this brand and engage. Obviously, more than 1 out of 2 families have a dog now. So, you know, if I was selling industrial pummeling, maybe, you know, logoed car isn't so important, but, you know, we love this brand and I think it's a good opportunity. You know, it also beats the bylaw. It's logoed and it's not a sign. So it's creating awareness, and all of our market managers have cars that are logoed, our VPs. So we're proud of the brand that way, and we're willing to share it with people. And it's worked with my past life, and, you know, I brought it forward to this role.
Super smart. And I always say it has to start at the top, at the leadership. So it's great to see a CEO as engaged as you are in the brand. And I'm sure that's a big reason behind the success. So congrats on all the recent openings.
Appreciate that. You know, I have grown, so I wear a logo shirt. It was mandatory when I got here that everybody had to wear logo shirts, and everybody wasn't as fond of that. So they liked it and, you know, would wear it often. But I eased up on those restrictions because I felt like, you know, I have to evolve as a leader too. So a lot of people still wear their logo shirts, but I've been able to evolve, and, you know, getting from 3 to 38 was really cool. Seeing the past 10 years, kind of how that evolved, and, you know, we're not stopping. You know, Ren's is going to go across Canada. It's a great story. People still like bricks and mortar, and they want to shop with us. And we'll continue to bring that experience whenever we can.
Awesome. Excited to see how far you guys go, Scott. Well, last question for you before we end the podcast here. Any advice for leaders today in executive roles that are battling the pandemic, coming back out stronger? Any leadership lessons that you've applied that you believe can help leaders today?
For sure, I'm going to say stay in that growth mindset and keep reading. Like you talked about getting a coach. I know you guys do that. Anytime you have somebody keeping you accountable, giving you new stuff to read, looking at some of your deficiencies, you know, that's something we don't always see clearly, and somebody from the outside can. So I wouldn't, you know, trivialize how important that is to be looking at yourself and making sure you're growing. And I just recommitted to reading and my physical fitness a little bit just to kind of get myself stoked and kind of going again. And it's obviously January, February is a really hard time. So some of those kind of personal wins will help you professionally, I think. So for any leader out there, I would say commit to some physical fitness, keep keep reading and evolving, surround yourself with some good people and have some conversations that get you excited. I was looking forward to this call today. Gets the juices flowing a little bit again. And I think that's important as leaders. You got to kind of keep triggering and stimulating yourself.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on, Scott. Everybody watching and listening, if you have a pet, a dog or a cat especially, please go visit Rent's Pets if you are in the GTA in Ontario.
And Tanvir, congratulations on all your success at your age. I know you reference that a lot, and people probably, look at you and wonder, but I read the book, I looked at it, and you've incorporated a lot of the values that I believe in. I love, the pro kind of concept that you're doing there, but you're on the right path. You got a lot of great learnings you've had already as a young leader, and just keep those as your stepping stones. You're definitely doing something really well.
Awesome. Well, it means a lot, Scott. Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thanks, Tanvir. Take care.